Yes.
All right. Yes, no, we're good? All right, we are good. All right, before Marie does roll call, which we're gonna do in 1 second, I just want to say, you know, for the past 2 meetings, we've been asking about people attending and asking about if we're gonna have a quorum. We shouldn't have to do that. There are people who want to be on this committee. We're really gonna start looking at people showing up, and if they're not, we're gonna ask that people step down so that we can bring in people that want to be at this table, that want to be involved. And I think it's very important, considering what's happening at the state level, that we really show that as a region, we have the involvement, we have people here that want to show up, that want to be involved. Because otherwise, it gives them more fuel to say they should be running the whole state. That said, I'll let Marie go over the roll and we'll get started.
Okay, please just answer when I call your name. Robert Winchell, Joseph Schenker,
Here.
Michael Batch, Robert Ackerman,
Here.
Laura Ivacoli, Stuart Kessler, Matthew Fink, Wallace Carter. Wallace Carter's not here? Eric Cohen, Kevin Munjal. Something. Cindy Vasilio. Grace Cacciola. Here. Dario Gonzalez. Here. Glenn Esteta.
Here.
Bradley Kaufman. Nathan Reisman.
Here.
Pamela Lai. Adrian Cottarello.
Here.
Nicholas Alexander.
Here.
Doug Isaacs.
Here.
Devin Howell.
Here.
Kevin Ward. Anne Marie Gugenti. Andrew Dahl. Allison Burke. Jeffrey Raybridge.
Here.
Lauren Costurco. Reed Caldwell.
Here.
Jonathan Berkowitz.
Here.
Louis Marshall. Michael Redlener.
Here.
Dominic Battinelli. Efren Rendon. Peter Wire.
Here.
Paul Barbara.
Present.
David Benelli.
Here.
Mary Foote. David Miller. Mark Cantor. Sharice Berry. Ed Jarvis. Joseph Bode. Sean Graves. Jessica Van Maries. Benjamin Zabar. Matthew Harris. Robert Krupe.
Here.
Arthur Cooper.
Here.
Yadidra Langsom.
Present.
Anthony Shalish. We have a quorum.
Great.
Hallelujah.
Okay, we have a forum. Thank you all that are here. For those watching on the video, like I said, attendance, and we're going to start looking at the roster and figuring out people that don't attend and make some changes. Okay, first is approval of the minutes of the January 10th meeting. They were sent out in correspondence to everybody. Does anybody have any questions or concerns about the minutes? No, hearing none. I'll entertain a motion to approve them. Excellent. Okay, correspondence report, Marie.
Okay. There's a lot, but I'm You'll get most of it in a minute. I'm gonna give you the important stuff. Memberships, okay. The first district branch of the Medical Society of the State of New York is appointing Dr. Eric Blutinger as an alternate delegate. He's going to be Dr. Peter Wire's alternate. Okay. Fire department has a medical special operations conference. I think Doug, you renamed it. It's going to be on May 4th through 7th, 2023, and we're sending out the registration information. What are you calling it now?
I don't know. It's a search and rescue, field medicine consortium, just for temporary. We also have a competition, that we're doing also as a free conference as well. We have a team from Belgium and. Wow. Stuff, so hopefully, team from Europe will,
Make it so.
yes.
We're posting all this information on our website too, along with the registration link.
Pretty soon we won't let you have socks either.
Okay, the following information from the Bureau of EMS. You know, they're having multiple Part S information sessions. I've sat through 2 of them already. The next one is Wednesday, March 22nd at 4 p.m. That's tomorrow. So if you have not gotten the invite or seen it, email me and I'll make sure you get a link. There are a bunch of Vital Signs Academy and EMS leadership provider briefings. Those dates will be in the minutes, and we also have emailed those out. Okay. There are new application forms. If your ambulance service wants to do transfusion services, they're available on the Wadsworth website. It's a very long website, so if you need it, let me know. I'll send it to you. It will be in the minutes. Vital Signs will be in Syracuse this year, from October 9th to 22nd. And the Bureau of EMS has requested presenters for this event, and you can sign online. January 2023 EMS for Children Advisory Committee meeting was held in January. Okay, let me give you the enforcements. That's what you all gonna want to know. Robert Marshall, Jamaica, New York, EMT 422341, EMT certification surrendered March 8th for violations of Part 800. Okay, we have Gabriel Oliveras from Staten Island, New York, and he's EMT number 447126. His certification was surrendered effective March 20th and a civil penalty of $500. Brian Reynolds, he's from Rochester, New York, so you don't really have to worry about him. EMT number 262638, surrendered effective 3/13/23. The Patterson Fire Department was suspended for 1 year effective 3/13, placed on probation for 3 years on a civil penalty of $2,000. Anthony Canestro, he's from Castleton, New York, EMT 469575, revoked March 1st. Steven Carezla, Wonton, New York, suspended for 1 year, beginning March 1st, and EMT number 28283. And all these numbers will be in our minutes. Okay, we sent. Okay, ambulance agencies have been assisting us. They, Bed-Stuy sent a letter of objection for proposed revisions to New York State Public Health Law to Senator Brisbort. We have a lot of CME training going on. Not going to go over the whole list. There's an EMS clinical coordinator job position still available at Center Education Group. We have the information if anyone's interested in applying. Okay, and NYSARA has also done advocacy town hall meetings for the state budget information. I don't know if they're going to have another one, but they had a really good one last night. They got a lot of good information, and there was actually an opportunity to talk back and forth, unlike with state information meetings where no one gets to talk. I don't have to be nice on this.
We
no, no one wants to be nice. Oh, this is something we probably should have done at the beginning of the meeting, but Dr. Patricia O'Neill, I don't know how many of you knew her. It was really devastating. She and her husband were killed in a head-on collision. She was pediatric trauma, so involved, such a nice woman, and I think everyone who knew her is going to miss her. They did have a virtual service for her. And an in-person one at the Brookfield campus. So, she would definitely be missed from our trauma system. Okay. So we've sent out advisories about our LMS, our paramedic credentialing. And we sent out information on Part S, the proposed changes to Article 30. We sent up a position paper to our legislators and to the health committee chairs on both sides, Senate and Assembly. And thank you to everyone, anybody else who has sent out letters supporting this. And that's it.
Okay, thank you, Marie. Additional just correspondence. I know that we received a RN CV from Kelly Gorman, who is she's a flight med. She was a flight medic in Northwell. She was on the mobile stroke unit at NYP. It recently became an NP, but is interested in joining as an RN. So her CV will be sent out and we'll vote at the next meeting. Also, there is going to be a pre-con at Vital Signs, an NAMSP foundations course, I believe. It's Foundations of Medical Oversight.
Yeah, there's going to be a quality and safety course, potentially there, and foundations of medical oversight. So I think it's not fine. The quality and safety is not fine.
Right. There is the potential for 2 pre-cons at Vital Signs in Syracuse. So be on the lookout for that. Also to let any quality personnel at your agencies know about that. Okay.
Also, we did also get another resume from RN from a
Stately Dietrich.
stately teacher. So both of them.
Excellent. Okay, the executive committee did not meet. We did have a few meetings with some of our legislative representation. That was Marie, myself, Art, Bob Krupe, Vidya were on these meetings. Scott was all basically being very vocal about our position with regards to Part S. Not so much the content, but the process and the fact that it's being put through as a budgetary means to avoid the legislative process. And that was our main concern. We all agree that there needs to be changes to Article 30, but they need to be done in a proper way with the proper input from all the stakeholders in the region. Okay, subcommittee reports. We'll start with CNC, Dr. Barbara.
All right. Tough to follow that report, so thank you. The credentialing committee is met on a regular basis. I don't have the exact date. I think it was February 24th was our last meeting, February 24th remotely. Mr. Boyd is unable to be here tonight to discuss the details of the ongoing credentialing process, but I have a report from him. Bless you. Approximately 80 providers have recertified successfully through the CME process through the learning management system. The first original exam reflecting the 2020 protocols will be given this week, Thursday night, with approximately 15 test takers. The students happen to be a mixture of original providers and expired paramedics. And The most common reason for people who fail to renew through the CME process, it's the lack of CME, or their application is too distant from their expiration date, meaning they're simply too far ahead of the game, which is probably a good problem to have. So we're having no lapses. We're having no issues with maintenance of credentialing with the new process. And based on the anecdotal experience, as well as the evidence is presented here, the new credentialing process appears to be successful. We look forward to continuing to monitor.
Any questions for Dr. Barbara?
Well, they're recertifying early, like before they're due.
They're applying for the recertification before they're due. And I think if we just take a step back and think about the pandemic and the impact that had with the rolling re-credentialing expiration dates, and then the sporadic extensions of a year. A lot of people might not know when they truly expire at this point, because they were blessed through for close to 24 months, which is 2/3 of a full cycle. So one of the best benefits of this very, very detailed learning management system is removal of the paper and the self-application, where a person's re-credentialing application is contingent on them knowing when they expire, but we're able to now generate a lot more binary data on a computer system that tells us as people are credentialing. The best part of it is that no one has failed to maintain their credential.
So if they don't pass the test early, they're still credentialed.
There's no test. The only paramedics who take a test to credential in this region are the original course people or the expired people, which is the class that Kevin is administering a test to this week. All maintenance of credentialing has moved to the LMS with CME basis. The best way I could do this in physician talk is no more concert exam, it's all LLSAs. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
EMCert, ComCert, or, the protocol update was the first mandatory piece of the CME training. We're approaching the second quarter now. If someone has content that they feel is relevant to the entire region, I think we're at a point where we could launch a second mandatory CME piece for the region. But I'm trying to avoid muddying the waters on what's CME for the whole CME and what's the CME in place of the exam, which is those mandatory updates. The only one to date we have for that is the protocol update. But should there be a safety piece or something extremely relevant to the dynamic nature of our medicine, we can put out a second mandatory CME. The way I would describe that is the annual mandatory training we all take for our respective employers. That this, you can't pass go without passing this. Yes, Dr. Cooper.
Given the impact that quality safety initiatives are having these days, and I, of course, look directly at Professor Redliner over there. I think a mandatory CME on quality safety initiatives in the EMS is something we should strongly consider.
Sure. A topic that came up during our protocol town hall was also and this is seems very hot topic, was the behavioral health emergencies and the integration of law enforcement with behavioral health. And those waters are very muddy. And I would look to anyone, because the crews are really, really looking for guidance and best practice. And, if an event of that nature doesn't occur, it will. We're just waiting for it. So the quality piece is a great idea, Art. Thanks, Mike. He volunteered for that.
I didn't hear my name.
No, I do think that Morty and Lauren Sturko are working on a online, like a CME or one of these town halls on behavioral health emergencies. So I think it is.
If anybody wants to be part of that or add into that, please.
Sure.
Yeah.
If I might just add to that, the issue of pediatric agitation, behavioral emergencies, it has been getting an awful lot of focus lately at the national level and the state level. The state EMSC advisory committee has been, deeply involved in this process. There will be stuff at Vital Signs this year about managing pediatric patients who are agitated. I'm sure everyone around this table realizes that the focus in pediatric agitation, and I'm not talking the 500-pound adolescent, I'm talking, pediatric patients, is in verbal de-escalation. But for those of you who are not aware, the EMSC, EIIC, which is the EMSC Innovation and Implementation Center based out of Texas, has outstanding training materials, including videos and so on management of behavioral emergencies in kids. So I think that would be a very valuable, adjunct to whatever program we're coming up with.
Yeah, no, I mean, the goal here is that this credentialing is ongoing and we're putting CME into it. We're dumping the Vital Signs CME into it as well. It's being cross-credentialed, but if the time comes that this body feels strongly about an educational topic, we now have a way to reach every provider in the region, regardless of agency, which is going to make our community better. Anyway, that's the end of my report.
Great, thank you. Before we continue with the next report, which will be medical standards, I know that there are a few physicians who have joined us that are on the roster. I just need you to identify yourselves for the record.
I'm Stu Kessler. I'm the alternate for Dr. Cole.
Thank you.
Cindy Basilius.
And great.
And
Thank
Reed, I
you.
think also.
So Reed was,
No,
he was here for the role, but I just wanted to add those additional physicians. Thank you. Okay, medical standards, Dr. Benelli.
So medical standards met a week ago on the 14th, March 14th, 3 p.m. virtually. We discussed a number of items. The items that are being brought for a second motion to the to Remac are mainly from the protocol committee. Dr. Lai has a laptop connected, hopefully. And there are a number of protocols that we need to approve over here, including those from last Remac meeting that was canceled because of lack of quorum. So we will slowly go through all these and okay, go ahead, Dr. Lai. Maybe you can make it through the video.
All right, so the first protocol that we have is a amendment to our sort of like our definition for when CPR should be started. This is in our GOP section. So this was one of the things that we had found during our comparison between the New York State collaborative protocols as well as our unified protocols that we took a little research and this addition for the condition of being submerged. Submersion for greater than 1 hour. This is consistent with the state wording in terms of like when CPR should not be started on a patient. This is sort of like on the conservative side. This is consistent with other language or other statements that have been put out by the AHA. I believe the AHA has a smaller time window, so this being for greater than 1 hour is actually more conservative. But this is also the time frame that the state has used. So we have proposed to adopt this language from the state to be included in our unified protocols.
So this is being brought as second in motion. Any discussion?
We're just making ourselves consistent with the state, essentially.
Yes.
So I guess-
No, not that we have to, but that's what we're doing.
Is that an amendment? Okay, so do you want to run a roll call?
It's protocol trends, yes.
Okay, rock and roll. Yeah, well, Dave, do you think we can bundle them all together?
In my opinion, yes.
Let's do that then.
Let's do that.
Okay, let's
So
move
I'll
forward.
go to the next one. So the next one is going to be a change to, again, this is a change that we have opted to, that not only makes sense for us in the region, but also makes us consistent with the state as well. So this is a change or overdose protocol. So the one change that we have on here is that a little bit more clear language as well as moving the one form of medical control option for sodium bicarbonate for any suspected salicylate overdose or any other overdose that makes that produces a prolonged QTC interval, QT or QRS interval. We move this to the standing orders section under the paramedics. So again, this is another change that is consistent with the state, not adding or subtracting any medications, but just moving it from medical control options to standing orders.
And the rationale to that is because I don't think there'll be any online medical control physician who would ever deny this. And it's probably the right thing to do. Suspected presence of overdose. Little harm, potential benefit. So that's why we did that. Any discussion?
All right.
I have a question.
Hold on, one question over here.
Pam, I'm sorry, yeah. 450, or you want to wait till all the way get to 450? Is that the literature, or should we consider 500?
I think this is the state, I believe.
I'd just call the same question. It's normally like 500 is what
Right.
they use to, yeah.
And it's a rounder number.
It is a rounded number.
Can we,
It won't be consistent with the state.
we could do this on the fly?
No, you have to make a
You
motion.
gotta make a motion to amend.
You have to have a second, you have to vote on that motion. and then move on.
Just blink once, ma'am. Just blink once to let me know what you want me to do here.
Either say it or don't say it.
Is that?
You want it?
Yeah, make a motion to change the QTC to 500 milliseconds for this.
I'll second.
Thank you, Dario.
It's greater than 500, yeah.
Greater than.
All right.
Moly.
500 and greater?
Greater than 500?
500 milliseconds.
All right, is anybody, any discussion on this? All right.
What is there any specific literature that with the number? I mean, I'm not.
I would say that that's standard practice. Most of us in this room, right?
I'm just curious how the state.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, there's no logic. Am I correct if following the option?
I think we should do what's right regardless of what the state's doing. But I think 500 is the number.
We're all trying to do our thing,
Yeah.
say you have literature support, what we're stating, I mean, that's.
So I don't know, I don't think that Dr. Barber has literature right now to support that. Do we think that this is something that should go back to protocol with literature, or do we want to? I mean, I think that in practice, most of us would use 500 as the number. So I think that most of us would be comfortable with that, but yeah, I don't think that there's literature right now at the meeting, but it's just curious. Yeah,
It's just common practice.
I agree.
And I think we've all been doing common practice, and maybe we should be. And it isn't much easier now. Round numbers are much easier to. for people
Common
not to
practice is
make
not so
mistakes.
common.
And it's not that big a difference.
I agree. I don't disagree.
450 is really, there's so many people with QTC of 450. I agree. Okay, so we need to vote on the amendment.
Sorry, no, I would just present the counterpoint, which is, I mean, like, in the absence of evidence presented, it's not, I don't know if it's worth deviating from what exists at the state level, honestly. I mean, I know, I think it makes it much more complicated for practice, so, so I wouldn't do it on the fly, I would do it with, specific evidence and do it in the right way.
So right now, there's a seconded motion on the table to change the number to 500. We're discussing that. We're going to either vote on that, or we could table this to protocol for discussion there, but that's what's on the table right now.
I propose that we approve this as written and then come back and look at it 450 versus 500 protocol.
Well, we could do that, but we still have to vote on the current motion that's on the table.
The motion for that?
Hold on one second.
Move to table to
So-
protocol to discuss.
So if Art moves to table, we have to vote to table it. We're going to do this by a hand vote. This does not need to be a roll call. All in favor of tabling this to protocol, please raise your hand.
Which discuss.
To discuss this change, we'll table this protocol to protocol to discuss this 500 versus 450. Correct. The motion gets tabled to protocol.
But what about the amendment?
The motion on the floor is the amendment to the protocol.
Only voting on the amendment, Brian. You can't table the main motion, but you just the amendment.
So once so to make this clear, so everybody understands, once we table the motion to protocol, we can then choose to either vote on what was presented originally, or we can choose to send that to protocol as well.
Said table, says send that.
But he put table.
But he doesn't protocol for that, so you.
What did I do wrong?
I'm sorry. Put it on the table and forget about it. Send it back to committees.
That's what I said. Return to sender is what he means.
The amendment or the?
Okay.
I regret the amendment. I mean,
Okay, so all in favor of sending the change back to protocol, please raise your hand.
I'm sorry, I still have a question, which is, I would like to vote for this change, but I don't want to, and then I want to bring,
Okay, so the move to
Discuss the
table
rest.
though stops the
premature.
discussion. It stops the move to send back to protocol, stops the discussion. We have to vote on that. If the vote gets overturned, then we can continue the discussion or vote on the amendment at that point. That's the rules. So again, all in favor of sending this to protocol, please raise your hand. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So that is all opposed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Any abstentions? No. Okay, so that is a simple majority. It would be put back to protocol.
Mr. Chairman, I would simply state that, because this is not an emergency protocol change, it doesn't slow anything down, right?
Agreed. Again, the decision was made. So that discussion about 450 versus 500 has now been sent to protocol. Thank you guys very much. Next thing is the motion on the table, which we can either vote or send to protocol as well.
Can I withdraw it as the chairman of medical standards and just send back to protocol?
You can actually,
Okay, so I'm.
because it comes as a seconded motion from medical standards.
Okay, this is
You
not.
can?
Not really.
No, you can't.
Why not?
You really can't. Why not?
Right.
Because
Yeah.
once a motion is made and seconded, it belongs to the floor, not to the individual person.
I tried, David.
Move
Okay,
to table.
all right, so.
Send back to protocol.
Okay.
Protocol.
So now we have a motion to, or we have a move to send the entire protocol back to protocol.
But it doesn't.
Right.
Yeah, the state. It's not.
Mr. Ackerman has something to say.
The state says 3 wide boxes. They just say wide and QRS.
They don't even have a number.
Okay, guys,
That's why we have a protocol. Let them figure it out.
It's a
and tell us
number,
what to
we're
do.
gonna bring a wrap
Okay.
up.
There's
So
another
now-
reason why we're better than the state.
Guys, all right, guys, let's focus for a second. So right now, we just need to vote on whether we're gonna send this back to protocol or not. All in favor?
Someone seconded the motion.
Anybody second his moving into protocol? All right, there we go. Now,
Yep.
yes, technically, yes. Everyone wanted to, actually, I thought
Not the table.
I thought move the table.
No discussion on a motion.
There's no discussion.
Send it back. Motion to table means you put it on the table and stays there forever. until someone
Unless you
makes a
table to a specific time and place.
I would then do that.
Yes, he
Which
did.
is what,
You're
that's,
wrong.
that's.
Anyways,
That's,
okay, any discussion on this motion? Because I'm starting
I
to
have a
lose my mind.
discussion.
Yes.
I regret making a motion. I want everyone to know, I regret making a motion that the protocol committee worked worked hard on this. And our inability to adjust on the fly or even discuss adjusting on the fly speaks to the inefficiency of this meeting. You can table my comments.
You're just wrong.
It is not wrong.
In this case, he's wrong.
Okay,
I
right.
regret making the motion.
Thank you. Can we vote on, all right, so we're voting on this motion to send this back to protocol. All in favor, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 12, 13, 14. Okay, all opposed? 2, 3. All right, 4. What was the third? Not 4.
Three over there.
Three over there.
Yes, all right, 4. So it's going back to protocol. Next. All right, Dr. Benelli, we're back to your,
All right, so the last protocol is some changes to our current shock protocol. So, there are still something that we're going to discuss with our sepsis protocol, which is going to be separate than what this is. So there's going to be some language changes as well as a proposal to remove dopamine from the protocol. So the first change is the strike of this consecutive criteria. There is some clarifying language in the employment consideration section that we will go over in a second to help with this strike through. Let's go to that section first, and then we'll talk about the removal of dopamine. So this one, I think that there was like some discussion in terms of some possible questions from providers as to like when that they should be using this protocol. Then that we're hoping that this key points considerations will help to clarify. So that is so that patients with shock due to a specific etiology that is addressed in other protocols that do not include a vasopressor, so that is like trauma or any of the dysrhythmias, should be treated accordingly prior to utilizing this protocol. Providers who are managing patients who remain hypotensive despite treatment in these protocols should utilize medical control options listed in the respective protocols rather than using the shock protocol on here. That is like, if you have a patient with so say for example, anaphylaxis, we would rather have them go through the medical control options listed under anaphylaxis rather than to necessarily jump to treating this protocol if they are resistant to any of the medications that were given to the patient. So that is the first, I guess, big addition on there. The other one is that a lot of discussion was made in terms of the vasopressor options that we have listed. We have, through discussion as well as a review of the literature, we've elected to remove dopamine from the generalized or undifferentiated shock protocol. Dopamine still lives in the bradydysrhythmia protocol I think it's a medical control option, but I could be wrong. But it's still in the bradydysrhythmia treatment options, since dopamine is still seen as being like an equivalent therapy for bradydysrhythmias as equivalent to electrical therapy, electrical pacing for those patients. But we decided that because there are other options that are listed under here in the generalized shock protocol, such as norepinephrine as well as push dose epinephrine, that we thought after discussions through the protocol committee as well as medical standards that dopamine really was not a first line vasopressor for these sort of like undifferentiated or generalized shock. So we decided we would have a close to remove dopamine from this protocol.
Okay, any discussion? Any of the guidance in the protocol? It's essentially trying to align with what we do with common practice. Again, within common practice, I don't think it should be. And we don't use dopamine. I can't remember the last time I used dopamine as my first vasopressor of choice. Any discussion? Dr. This is the last protocol that
This is the last protocol.
including from last meeting, right?
That is correct.
Okay, good. I guess now we have to vote
So now
for.
we're gonna vote on the two protocols that we discussed and then not send back, but that is the first one, which is to change the time to be consistent with the state. And because it's the right thing to do, not because it's the state. And number two is to remove dopamine from this protocol. Those are the two changes that we are voting on now. And this will be a roll call vote. Marie?
So your choices are in favor, oppose, or abstain.
Save me for
Hmm?
Save me for the top.
Yes, sir. Okay. Glennis Seda,
In favor.
Bradley Kaufman, Dario Gonzalez,
In favor.
Nathan Reisman,
In favor.
Pam Lai,
In favor.
Nick Alexander,
In favor.
Doug Isaacs,
In favor.
Jeffrey Raybridge,
In favor.
Reed Caldwell,
In favor.
Michael Redlener,
In favor.
Arthur Cooper,
In favor.
Mark Cantor, Robert Krupe,
In favor.
Stu Kessler,
In favor.
Kevin Munjal,
In favor.
Cindy Basilios,
In favor.
Matt Harris isn't here. Right?
No.
Ben Sabar?
He doesn't alter it. Don't worry.
I'm his alternate. In favor.
Oh, what is your name?
Adrian Corolla.
One of the colors.
Oh, so you're Matt Harris. Okay.
No, Ben Saber.
He's done things like that.
Okay. Okay.
I didn't vote.
You're not, yeah,
Good
hold on.
to you.
She's tallying over there. I want to say-
Paul Barber,
In favor.
David Benelli,
Yes.
Peter Wire.
Yeah.
People are confusing me, Paul. You want me to call him now? Dr. Shanks?
No.
Who you're sitting next to, I can't imagine.
Joe,
Okay, so unanimous.
thank you. Okay, Dr. Benelli, back to you.
Yeah, so these are the action items that were brought forward to Remac. We had other discussions, which I think we're gonna discuss anyway over here. The subcommittee reports, I won't repeat them. We had a lively, very productive, lengthy discussion about use of propositions, using the or and. I will not permit that to happen again. We are going to start doing, actually using a Zoom call, since it worked well for the voting. We're going to start using that regularly with the help of Charlie and Michelle and Marie to make this a reality for our future protocol approvals, etc. motions in medical standards. Next medical standard meeting is on April 4th, 3 p.m. virtual. Michelle will send out the links. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, any questions for Dr. Benelli? Okay, Dr. Redlener, QA/QI, please.
Thanks very much. So we met on March 1st. We had a robust discussion about a number of different topics. The first one was the New York City CARES project, which we've all heard about through the regional presentation that New York State is implementing or enabling the CARES database and registry for cardiac arrest care to roll out for free to all agencies and hospitals in New York State, and they are recruiting in New York City. They are in the process of doing due diligence around figuring out how it will work in our region. And we had a robust discussion about what that looks like. One of the issues that has come up, and if any of you have been involved with it, it's really about the time that it takes to do review of cases, right? There's a number of conversations that have happened around what can be automated and what can be done, what needs to be done by hand and by personal review. And so there is some element of cost and time to do that for any EMS service. One of the action items that we've recommended is to have a regional meeting with data and quality folks so that people can understand, right? The expectation is that all services will join this, the statewide database. And then there's a lot of questions about what that actually looks like. And so we'd like to facilitate that discussion at a regional level for EMS. We recommended to Remac to create a tag to address that those technical issues. That's a forwarded motion. Is that something we have to vote on now, or is that? We're making a recommendation for us to have a formalized New York City CARES tag.
Well, that was, it's not a motion. I mean, we already said that we were going to appoint that.
Okay.
So that is, there's no motion necessary for that.
Okay.
We'll just have to figure out the leadership of that and so on. So we'll do that offline.
Great. And so the next item of business was the REMSCO statewide quality improvement project. I also sit on the statewide quality measures course. Just for people's information, there was a new quality manual that was updated. I think a number of people in this room had written the last one in 2007, 11 maybe. It was a long time ago, and so it's been updated with some other resources that is available on the website, the REMSCO website and the state website. The other project that the committee is working on there is kind of a stamp of approval for specific quality measures that New York State is looking to kind of approve as quality measures that folks throughout the state should and could use. It's in tandem with the rollout of what's called biospatial, which is a data analytics platform that will be available to all program agencies and agencies. That has not been discussed, but there's the presentation is also on the REMSCO website, on the state website as presented at CMAC at the last meeting there. So we discussed how that could be utilized. There's follow-up on the stroke and STEMI quality project that we've been working on with First Watch for some time. That is, we are hoping after a long time to really put out measures that we feel confident about. We think we'll be ready to present that at the next Remac meeting. And then we asked also that Presbyterian give us an updated presentation on the stroke ambulance project and what's going on with that. There was some interesting, we had asked around the change in the medical control option for sedation related to intubation. We had wanted to know if we had an increased rate of intubation in the region. On a preliminary report that Joe Ranieri had so kindly put together, it didn't seem that there was a drastic uptick in intubation after that change in protocol. There was some expected, I think, increased intubation rate during the pandemic, but not with the pandemic surge, but not in relation to the in relation to that change. And we're going to be looking at that a little bit more closely to have a little bit more refined data. We recruited 2 new people to the committee, Dr. Cindy Vasulios and Eric Cohen. Welcome to the committee. We are still looking for one other person, and I believe it's a nurse representative, right? And we will be continuing to recruit for that seat. And then there was a case of a regional restriction that was discussed, and that is the end of my report. Any questions?
Dr. Gonzalez.
With the intubation, when you looked at it, did you look at complications? And how did you measure that?
So we used the state bridge to create a report. It's actually a bit better than it has been in the past, and so able to make it. But we're not doing case reviews of all of the intubations, and we looked at awake intubations, not cardiac arrest intubations.
But the problem is esophageal intubation versus endotracheal intubation. If we're doing a change in medications, we're really looking at the complication rate that's associated with it that we tend to ignore.
I think this was the first pass at looking at the data. I think if that, I guess what I interpret your comments as maybe we should go further into looking.
My comment is that if we're looking at adding medications, then maybe we should look at complications that might be associated with that.
That's a good point.
We changed one part, but we only looked at, are you giving the drugs? We don't look at, are we doing the right thing?
I think the question originally was, if we made this standing order, would that change the rate of intubation? That was the first question. The question about success rates and if there's more missed intubations, that's a very good question. We're gonna have to delve deeper into the data, but the first question that we asked was specifically if changing it to standing order would increase the amount.
Derry, that's the key question. Are we missed intubations? And I think that we should be doing that, and each of our services should be looking at the entitled CO2 for every case and reviewing those.
I agree. I totally agree.
And I'm not sure what the general practice is among our peers around that practice, but I think that's probably the gold standard for reviewing cases and whatnot. But it's harder to do as a region, right? Because it involves more, right? The monitor data into the, right? It's harder to look at the kind of general data for the region. But we could ask, services to report on that to us as a committee, and I'm interested to hear how people feel.
Well, that's a good question. What do people think about that?
I think the process of getting any airway quality data sets the ground That's what I'm looking for here. It's the initiative towards a greater process, which would be potentially for video review as we move towards more and more advanced airway placement training. So anything where you're generating data for an airway, I think it might be the beginning for what could to come, where potentially we're looking at video review and title reviews. Is we really should be reviewing every airway by some manner.
Yeah, just maybe an easier data measure is looking at the number of attempts.
That might be something
Yes.
easier to get.
Just
than getting
getting a
the-
number, I think
the
it's a great
monitor.
start.
Yeah.
Well, you're not getting there. It's not one in 10.
Oh.
10 neutral ground of what an attempt is. Right?
I think follow-up and title becomes,
It's what you
can you
document.
submit follow-up and title? Can you submit your video?
I've had the pleasure of looking at a lot of VL, field VL videos. The PCR data is not going to help you here. I'll just leave it at that.
100%. But I do think that the monitor data would help you.
The monitor data is real data.
Right, you need something objective.
Groundwork.
So what do you consider an SGA a successful airway?
Yes.
Yes.
As long as there's end-tidal CO2 exchange.
Right.
Anyway, I think that it's great discussion because how do you get to that? I mean, like, again, it's hard to do it in bulk data, but you can do it on a service level with reviews of every intubation and the end-tidal CO2 and monitor review.
I think that this is like, we're just starting to take a look at this at the Remac QA committee. And again, I think that I think ideally, yes, everyone should be looking at every airway manually to a certain extent. But I just think just with the numbers that we have, even just for like any agency, it's going to be very difficult to do. And I think that trying to digest a lot of this data, a lot of this information in bulk and quantitative format, is where we have our problems, in terms of looking at airway management, looking at chemography, because we also have a qualitative component to it as well. And I think it's just something that we're just kind of scratching the surface with at the Remac QA committee meeting. And I think that we'll definitely have some further discussions on how best to approach this and to hopefully use this information to be able to drive our protocols forward.
I think blending the practical with the reasonable is very important here. I wouldn't say every airway, but a non-arrest, non-invasive airway, those are fewer than they used to be. We're not doing that many sedation facilitated intubations anymore with the advent of the non-invasive and the supraglottics and an arrest. So the worst outcome is the patient who was breathing that we intervened on and is no longer has an airway. That's the person that deserves the highest level of
You're talking about
live
intubation.
takedown airway. An arrest airway with end tidal, I think that generating that type of data might be not worth, the juice won't be worth the squeeze. But a dyspneic breathing person who gets a sedation facilitated intubation to not have that information generate back to a quality committee, mic drop.
I think this is a perfect illustration of, why we need mandatory CME and quality and safety. Sorry, Mike. No, seriously, I'm being very serious here. I think as Dario's, recognized, without coupling it to an understanding of why it's important to collect the number of attempts as an example, people will continue to hide what they're doing and say, I got it on the first shot, when in fact, that wasn't the case. And if people understand that, or have a better understanding that is a part of a quality safety initiative, that you're trying to figure out where the glitches are, why people are maybe not getting it, or why it's taking multiple attempts to get it, and so on. And they feel as though they're part of the solution, as opposed to, somebody's trying to wrap their knuckles. It's I mean, in fact, I'd even go so far as to suggest that this could be a focus, for a potential module, saying, let's take a look at this particular issue. Here's why we need to collect this data. Please help us. Please help us help you improve your practice.
Yeah, I think that this is definitely very helpful. We're always at QA, we're always looking for what is the next thing we should be looking at this year. I think this is something that we need to figure out how to get this information. And I think Paul might be right. If we focus just on live intubations, that that N might be small enough that we get 100% of those evaluated.
We're close anyway.
Okay, I think honing the request from the region. I mean, it's been a while since we've asked agencies to provide something specific, and again, I think we'll take it back and refine that ask.
Correct.
Around airway.
This is eminently publishable data. I mean, this is
It's another issue altogether.
I
mean, how
know
are we
that.
gonna,
I understand that. I
I'd
get
like
that.
to think about ways to publish together.
Jump off that bridge when we get to it.
Maybe we don't want to publish that.
No, I think
It's a quality study that you just so happen
That's
to
right.
retrospectively decide to pass through someone's IRB.
So who
Or
started the research
beforehand,
committee?
it doesn't matter.
Well, I think, yeah, right. I think that with the CARES stuff, we're gonna have this discussion again, and I think we'll have to consider a quality or a research committee separate from the quality committee to evaluate this. But we'll get to that when we get to it. All right. Anything else, Mike? All right. Any other questions for Dr. Redletter? Okay. Having none, I will go to training education. Morty Lax couldn't be here tonight. He was going to report on the same data that Paul reported during CNC. So we'll move on to the interfacility transport tag, Dr. Berkowitz.
Yep, so we met last week. We are getting to a final product that we can share with this group. There's a couple of sections left. As I think we discussed before, I don't think there's a sufficient authority within the Remac, meaning if we pass protocols and then it's to the state, I don't think the state would actually say anything but, oh, that's really nice. So I think what we're doing is really more about guidance and setting some standards. I do think that no matter looking at, reading the tea leaves for the future, I think that there's an opportunity for here as a region for us to lead in something that might be a bigger part down whatever happens in the future. That's things that are outside of our control. So I think that's kind of one thing I think that's relevant. So we do have a couple of sections left, but we're mostly done. I want to thank Rob, Keith, Brian Levinsky, and everyone who's contributed. We have some great content. I'm excited to share.
Great, thank you. RTEC report, Dr. Isaacs, was there an RTEC meeting?
It was an RTEC meeting, and I went to some.
We did present the new updated criteria that was proposed from protocol, and they were in agreement with that. So that was the only feedback. I think I haven't responded to the call. That's why I was there for me. I just realized, but I was able to present that to the committee in their agreement with what our proposal was. So
great, thank you. Okay, and final subcommittee report, Dr. Benelli, the ECMO tag.
So the ECMO tag is slowly moving forward. We're still in discussions with DHA with regard to data collection, whether we're going to use their resuscitation database or use other means to collect data, whether it will be just generic platforms like RedCap, or it will be using get guideline resuscitation. Out of 6 hospitals that expressed interest, apparently 5 have confirmed that they want to do this. NYU apparently at this point are not interested, but that is fine because I think that 5 hospitals for a small borough like Manhattan is perfectly appropriate. The next steps will be to we're probably going to finalize data collection and then to start with training and education. We will have to train all providers within the New York City 911 system in Manhattan. Part of it will be done by via LMS. Part of it will be done in person. We've had already a preliminary meeting with members of the T&E committee and DOT, FDNY DOT, to start talking about that, about how we're going to do that. Parallel to that, we also discussed making a follow-up video for the stroke. I don't know if we mentioned this. Did you mention
No, I
this?
didn't mention it.
Follow-up video for LVO stroke, just to refresh everyone's memory and to try to get our compliance a little higher. That's just about it.
I'm going to plug the CME coming up on Thursday. So Nicole Bassan, who I trained with at Bellevue, she's in LA County and is the lead author on the implementation of their ECMO systems of care, and it's happening Thursday at 11 a.m. If anybody's interested. I think it went out through the region, so please join. I think there's lots of interesting parallels with LA, so that will be helpful, I think.
Great. Any questions for Dr. Benelli? Okay, hearing none, let's move forward. Regional Council update, Dr. Langston.
REMSCO met February 28th, 2023. A bunch of items. I'll go through them quickly. We approved a motion that REMSCO wrote a letter to the New York State DOH supporting NYU BLS co-sponsor application. Another motion to support that we should write a letter to New York State DOH recommending the transfer of officers at Staten Island Emergency Training Center and request an explanation of why they're refusing to do so. We had several full applications of various course renewals, which were all approved, and a special commendation was made for Maury Lax and the Training Education Committee for all the work that they've done. And this was put on the record. There was a round of applause for the work that they and the town hall meeting that was put together. So that was something that was very important. The emergency preparedness update was given. We're waiting for the second round of FEMA relief, totaling about 130K. One of the disaster funds ends on May 11, 2023. REMSCO will be submitting the third and final round of reimbursement. We also have intranasal Narcan. If anyone needs some, please pick them up from the office. We had a long discussion about Article 30, the governor's executive budget. We already heard letters were sent to various members of the Senate, the Assembly, New York City Council, and others. We met with multiple people in government, and it's ongoing. We also recommend that every ambulance agency independently write to their representatives, letting them know that sliding this in through a budget is not the proper way of doing things. New York City, as many of you may know, is planning a congestion pricing proposal for coming into Manhattan. This will affect everybody, ambulances, volunteers, people who work there want to respond. So we created a tag to discuss these things and bring it to the attention of the legislatures. There were no new transfer operating authorities and determination of need applications. I'm not going to review again the training education updates we already heard about. We already heard about the QA/QI committee. No reason to repeat that. Their regional EMS Council Award and Recognition Ceremony will be Monday, May 22nd. Okay, the office is now accepting applications for award nominations until mid-April. Recall that every one that you submit, we also submit to the state. So please do that. We also have applications for the World-Class Business Scholarship, and we're accepting applications for that. And most important of all, that the office is also seeking donations from anyone who would like to help support this yearly event, which is usually very well attended and a great success. The next meeting will be held a week from tonight, March 28th.
Can I just add to that report?
You certainly may.
NYU, well, we did send out the letters for NYU and NYU was approved by the State Department of Health. Staten Island EMT's transfer of ownership, we also sent a letter. And the state is actually working on this application to get the transfer done, and they're going to be putting in place a written policy so that when this happens again, they'll know what to do.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Dr. Langston? Doug?
I apologize. I just want to go back to the comments, Mark. I apologize when you're done. I apologize. I did leave me early. The trauma center criteria that we had sent a protocol, the only deviation or was the child abuse. They still wanted those patients going to trauma centers because they have the resources. Best to handle that. That was the only thing that deviated from what our recommendations were. I'll go back to protocol to bring it back to, next, Remac meeting.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions for Dr. Lance? Okay, hearing none, we'll go to the CMAC update from Dr. Kruger. CMAC Center.
I got the REMSCO.
Yeah, I gave you the
Yeah.
rest, I'm sorry.
Do we have a CMAC Center update?
I don't think so.
It wasn't, we didn't have a meeting
That
last
didn't
time.
meet since last time.
Yes, but we didn't meet last
Right.
time.
We didn't.
We never read it on minutes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I did not bring that down.
All right, so we will discuss at the next meeting. Any unfinished business? Any new business? I just wanted to mention to everybody, that we were considering having a presentation at the beginning of this meeting from the Matters program from Buffalo. There was a little bit too short notice, so we will have that at the next meeting. It will be before our meeting begins. It will just be a brief introduction into that program and see if any of it applies to our. I have no other new business. Does anybody else have any new business? What do you got?
I just want to bring everybody up to speed what's going on with the legislature.
Yes.
As you know, we have been speaking to our elected officials with regards to Part S. And our position is that there are some great parts in it, but we can't give our approval because it's going through a process that, sticking it through the budget is not appropriate. What it appears now, we have support. We have great support from the Senate, and we have some support from the Senate. What I think is going to happen is that parts of this are going to go through as part of the budget. But the sections that we really are against, the creation of the districts, which we don't know what that is, and it seems like just another layer of bureaucracy, even though the Department of Health says it's not. They can't tell us what it is going to be, so that's what we're assuming. And also the CON that they want to take away from the regions is going to stay with the regions for now. The Senate and Assembly now working on creating a single document. So we're going to be going back to them, and we're looking for input also from anyone sitting here. There are some parts of the document that are good. The expansion of the definition of EMS, which includes mobile care and community paramedicine. That probably should be approved. So, we can't stop it. Let's let them know what we like in it. So I'll be sending out again our position paper and give us comments. What do you want us to fight for? And we will.
Yeah, I think, a big part of that,
Sorry, I just wanted to acknowledge and thank Marie for really representing us well at REMSCO meeting. She spoke very well, and just all the efforts she has done since that meeting and making sure everyone's well informed and reaching out to all our representatives and so on and bringing everyone together. So thank you, Marie.
Here, here.
Thank
Here,
you.
here.
Thank you, Doug, too.
I just want to reiterate two things. First of all, it is imperative if we want to stand on our own and show the state that we need to have regional authority, both on a REMSCO and a Remac level, that this meeting is well attended and that people participate. If you don't participate, it's very hard for us to make an argument to the state that we need our independence because of our participation. So that's something I really encourage everybody. And again, like I said, we are going to be reviewing the membership. There is in the bylaws something that we fought for. If you don't show up for 4 meetings, you lose your seat. And it's time to start updating that and put people here that want to be here. Second of all, I just want to reiterate what you did just said. May 22nd, EMS week is the awards dinner. It is attended by many of the volunteers, many of the municipal ambulance companies. I really hope that people show up if you can help with any donations, that would be benefit as well. It's tax-free donation for those who need it. So please, and we also need nominations both from agencies. Marie can provide you the list of what awards we give out. There's physician award, nursing award, agency award, paramedic award, there's a paramedic scholarship, teaching awards. So if you have people in your agencies that meet these criteria, please let us know. That's it. Anybody have any comments or questions? Art and then Robert.
You know, I want to follow on Doug's comments because I think this is a really critical issue here. And Marie, thank you. But I want to follow upon that comment. Look at what we're doing in this region. I mean, Pamela's work leading the protocol committee has been amazing. I mean, the scientific review of all that we do, I think is unmatched anywhere in the country, let alone anywhere in New York State. Mike's work on quality and safety, nationally, statewide, regionally, you know, the educational programs that we're putting on involving the town hall aspects, Paul's work with CNC in terms of, the regional credentialing issues that are one of the things the state really wants to take away. And yet here we are developing an incredibly robust program to ensure that, that's done well. Last but certainly not least, Kevin Monjal has been leading the charge, nationally, regionally, probably internationally for all I know, on community paramedicine. I mean, there's so much good that's coming out of this region, okay, in terms of leadership in EMS, setting a standard, not just for the region, for the state, but for the nation and frankly, the world, guys, let's be honest, okay? These are things that we really need to be highlighting. These are things we really need to be saying. This is why we need regional, participation. Because look what happens when you turn a group of experts like the people sitting around this table loose, to get the work done. I mean, it's amazing. So these are things we really need to be highlighting and really bragging about, to be very honest with you. So kudos to all of you who are leading these efforts and all that are supporting them and leading those efforts. Not to mention Marie and Scott and Michelle and the whole office staff that's keeping everything together, but let's really highlight what we're doing here and tell them why regional input into the system is really worthwhile.
Thank you. Robert?
Hard to follow that, but the state started a committee for ambulance transfusion services to try to streamline Part 800 and Article 30. So I think I was the only one on it from downstate, but if there are any other ATSs or ambulance transfusion services, it meets every Monday. We're trying to streamline, so you don't have to have contracts with every hospital to do it and to make it easier for everybody to give blood if they need to, or transfer blood.
Excellent. Okay, anything else? All right, hearing nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved. All right, thank you, everybody.
Yes, you got it.
Right.